Back. Now, it's been a difficult year for South Africans. Many have lost their jobs while others have taken pay cuts. Well, with the December holidays on the horizon, it might be tempting to cash in on savings and investments. But is that a sensible thing to do? Well, to answer that question and others, we're joined by Lindi Monyae, the executive at Liberty Emerging Consumer Market. Lindi, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the South African Morning. We're having a conversation that most probably don't want to hear. We would like to cash in on our funds. Spend this festive season, make sure the kids have their clothes, everything is prepared. But you're saying that, hey, you might need to sit back and think about what's important before doing that.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. And also morning to the viewers. Absolutely. It's been a really tough year. And I think all of us in December, we think about spending money and having fun and just letting go of all the stress that we've experienced. The temptation to do that is a dangerous one because this year has been extremely tough from a financial perspective. And the view is that we should be thinking about paying our debts first before we think about having fun. For those people who might have additional income coming through, whether it's through stokvels that are coming out or a 13 check or any other additional income that might come in December, I think that the first thing to think about is, how have I done this year and how can I pay back the debts that I might have accumulated during the year, during this very tough period?
Yeah. And what happens if you don't have an additional income, Lindi? How do you advise South Africans to maneuver during this time, but also to prepare and plan ahead for next year?
I think the truth of the matter is very few people will have that additional income. Most of us would have to do with what we have. And as you opened up, most people have even lost some money during this time and maybe even lost some of their salaries. So planning is really critical. And I know that people sometimes don't think that having an advisor to advise you throughout this period seems a luxury, but actually it's not. Speaking to someone and going through your expenses and even thinking about next year with things like stationery, uniform, people are getting back to work, things like petrol. And in some instances, parents have students that will be going to tertiary. So thinking about accommodation, those deposits that they need to put through, planning for all of that is absolutely critical. And also thinking about lowering the expenses on fun. Again, temptation to just let go after a very difficult year is very easy. But thinking about how do we go about planning for next year before we even spend a cent on fun is going to be important.
Absolutely. And I can imagine during this time, getting a loan should probably be one of the most tempting things for most South Africans at this point. Is it advisable to get a loan at this time?
No, not at all. Getting a loan for something that's not going to bring you money or that's not going to help you for the long term is not a good idea at all. Some people even turn to credit cards during this time. What we want to do at this point is to make sure that our credit is looking good. And the way to do that is to pay the debts that you have and not create additional debt. Again, if you think that you might be in a squeeze or in a tight spot financially, the best way is to get formal advice from an advisor to see you through your plans and your goals for the year, and also to see how you can recover from this very difficult year.
Yeah, and just before I let you go, then, just in terms of advice, Lindi, I mean, I know we're talking savings and investments, and we're talking about debt and loans, but we know that, South Africans also, at least some of them may have, your life insurances, some may have their health insurances. Is it advisable to cancel those just so that you can have that additional income to utilize, or would you advise to keep those insurances in place to assist you perhaps in long term?
Cancelling short-term insurance or even long-term insurance is short-term thinking. These insurances are there to protect you from something that you might not have planned that happens in between. That's why they're there. They're your protection. It's very easy to cancel those, but no, it's not advisable to do that because who knows what might happen tomorrow. And also having spent money over the years paying for those insurances and then deciding at a last minute, perhaps when you need it the most, to cancel them, definitely not a good idea. And so we want to stay away from cancelling insurances, both short-term and long-term, and we want to make sure that we think about the future first.
Yeah.
Even talking to kids, explaining the situation and communicating effectively with extended families, spouses, partners about how do we plan going forward, because it can be done, but it is going to be a financially difficult year as we end this year.
Well, Lindi, thank you so much for talking to us and highlighting some of those important decisions that have to be made at this time. Lindi Monyae, thank you.